Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of The Right Fit. I'm your host, Darryl Jacobs. Join me every Friday at noon Eastern Time with decision makers in collegiate athletics and professional sports. But joining me today is a dear friend, the Chief Operating Officer for Athletics at Kennesaw State University. Please welcome to the show, Miss Tamica Smith-Jones.
Oh, I love the cheers. Seems like I need to do a hoo right there.
Well, it's you. You have a following. You know, you have your theme music and all that kind of stuff, and but you have a following. But thank you for taking the time today to join me here on The Right Fit, and we're going to talk all things Tamica Smith-Jones and your experience as well as the wonderful institution of Kennesaw State University. But before we get started, Q&A, talk about your journey into collegiate athletics.
I always kind of stumble when I talk about my journey into collegiate athletics because that's pretty much how I got in it after being a scholar athlete. Most folks that know me know I started out at a predominant white institution, Troy State University back then, but Troy University now, Division I, as a women's basketball scholarship athlete. I always stop and pause for a moment when I say that because it's the same spot that John Lewis grew up in, that community, and was not admitted, even though he was eligible and qualified to attend. So that was in the 70s. I got a full scholarship in the 90s. So I just like to pay homage to, where we've come when people feel like sometimes we hadn't made quite the journey. So I'm grateful for the shoulders that I stand on. Had a wonderful time there at Troy State University, met some beautiful people, great coaches that I still keep in contact with. But socially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, there was a lot of gaps in that experience. Athletically, academically, the community that we tried to build, I think was the best it could be for, Black scholar athlete at that time. But after 2 years, I decided to transfer. I have a real heart for the transfer portal right now because I understood then what I was feeling, but couldn't put words to it. And sometimes even now, when you look in the transfer portal, there are reasons why, it's just a better, move for students to go back to their hometown or be closer to family or, do something different to make sure they matriculate. And that's what we say as administrators is our ultimate goal. So I transferred to Alabama A&M, a historically Black college and university. I stayed in Alabama. My parents are from Alabama. So that just seemed like a good place for me to stay. And I always say I got all of my life at Alabama A&M. A&M really taught me, how to show up fully as a person in a world that sometimes I would be the only one. I would be the first one that I would, not feel that sense of belonging. And playing ball at A&M, getting my education at A&M in the classroom and outside of the classroom was priceless. So earned my degree in business administration at Alabama A&M. And my assistant coach at the time got the head coach job at Savannah State. And that's how I got into college athletics. He called me one day. I was done probably a couple of weeks out of earning my bachelor's degree and said, we never talked about you being a coach, but I think you'd be a great coach. I guess that's the rhythm in my conversation or something. He, figured I'd be a great coach, or maybe because I was the point guard at the time and could run the show a little bit. But my mom overheard that conversation. I was telling him, no, I wasn't interested, had done enough school. It was all good. Thank you, coach, for everything. I'm going to go on and own my own business, which I eventually did. And my mom said, who is that? And I told her, and she said, when do you need to be there? And in like a week, I was in Savannah, Georgia. Beautiful, beautiful place, as a graduate assistant and, being able to earn my master's in public administration there and being an assistant coach. I mean, as a graduate assistant, I was doing everything between the DOBO job and the director of ops job and the assistant coach's job, and filling all the gaps for the head coach that he needed and called on me for. So, talking about budget and travel plans and checking academic, requirements and, the whole gamut. It was a amazing opportunity that I had no idea that I'd be getting into. Did that for 2 years as a grad student, earned my master's in public administration, went on to, got a call from the AD at Morris Brown College saying, do you want to come home? That was a no-brainer. Came to Atlanta to Morris Brown College as an assistant women's basketball coach, and got into administration at that time, which was, just me growing, raising my hand to do different things. Ended up being an assistant, athletic director from some of the skill sets that I had that they were pulling out of me, and did that for several years. Morris Brown lost its accreditation when it made the transition to Division I, which was unfortunate, but that experience at Morris Brown really sharpened my skill sets. I got a chance to get involved in facilities operation, work with some of the best and the brightest. Really continue to build on the experience that I thought college should be for student athletes, for coaches, for staff. When they lost accreditation, I was fortunate that Clark Atlanta was across the street in the AU Center. Didn't even have to change my path to work. They saw my work. We had been colleagues. I had been colleagues with many of them at that university for years while I was at Morris Brown. And they gave me an opportunity to come across the street and coach and be an administrator. So I came as an appointed senior woman administrator. So that really was the second in command. I had a lot of responsibilities there to help lead that staff, grow myself, but also support the athletic director. That probably was the first time I really had a direct track to the cabinet level, to the president, which really, expanded my growth and skill sets and how I managed and navigated campus differently than just a collegiate athletic director. But I did that role at Clark Atlanta, senior woman administrator and head coach for 5 years. And I had my firstborn, who's now a sophomore at Clark Atlanta. So excited and proud of him. And, things started looking differently for me as a parent in this profession. And so again, I have a heart for, parents in college athletics, because it's a grind, it's a demand, but you can do it. You can do it. So I stepped away from coaching, stayed in administration, had been mentoring and modeling for one of my student athletes who I asked AD, could I give an opportunity to serve in that role interim. I would support and be her assistant, believe it or not. And that, I solved the problem. I gave him a problem because I was stepping away from coaching, but I solved the problem by saying, I've got a mentee that is ready to step in this role. I'll support her until she's ready to find her own staff. So we did that for a year. She was ready to take the reins and lead that program. And I was able to step into full-time administration at Clark Atlanta. And from there, I just continued to grow as an administrator, did everything that I could to make our department better, and went out on maternity leave, and the AD resigned, and the president called to say, when you come back, can you be interim athletic director, serve as interim athletic director until we do a national search? I said, sure, no problem. Thought it would be a couple of months or so. It ended up being a year. But the key part of that story is that I had worked for several years with my colleagues, and we had been building this thing and working together and having ideas and visions that, maybe the former athletic director was not necessarily bought into or did not, care to go in that direction. I get in the seat as an interim. We start talking about those same things. I take the risk and go. And I mean, the trajectory of Clark Atlanta at that time, as you know, Darryl, was amazing. We, won across the board. We didn't just win, on the playing surface. We won in the classroom. We won in the community. One of my pride moments at Clark Atlanta was winning the NCAA Community Service Community Engagement Award. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, we were just doing what we did on our campus and in our community. But winning the men's basketball championship was another. I mean, we first ever volleyball championship, but really, being a part of that campus and that community in a very significant way as the athletic director for my 5 years was priceless. Being able to be mentored by the president and being able to build relationships with the cabinet, people that I still communicate with today that I can call on to, that check on me was priceless. I left there because I was recruited away. I did not want to leave my hometown, Atlanta. Clark was good to me. I'm still vested $25,000 a year to Clark, Atlanta, and my son and anything else they need on that campus. But UTSA was starting football, needed a leader that had some real experiences to run the internal operations. And I took a look at that opportunity and just could not resist it. I mean, that leadership team, I was the first minority senior leader on that team at that time. They were at the FBS level, couldn't get any better than that for me, coming from a division 2 to FBS, just was a crazy career trajectory. Was there for 2 years as the senior associate for athletics, running the internal affairs, and learned a lot of things that, I didn't know at the Division 2 level, but also learned that the things that I learned at the Division 2 level translated and transferred to the Division 1 level. So same budgets, just different numbers, more zeros, same processes, same NCAA compliance, same love and care for your coaches, your student athletes, and your staff. But it was a large research institution, and it was a lot of moving parts, and it helped me to be able to synthesize and get in sync with, the rhythm of a campus and how to touch the things that, and the people and places that you needed to, and also be in the community. So great times at UTSA for 2 years there. And then UC Riverside, Chancellor called me looking for a diverse pool of candidates with a certain profile and skill set. And, never thought I'd go all the way to California trying to stay in Atlanta, but I did. And that time was, was really special. I spent about 5.5, 6 years there. Pandemic really, changed that plan. Also, my son coming back to this coast for college, and the pandemic, it was just, kind of a career audible to make the move from Riverside back to Atlanta, and being able to land at Kennesaw State, R2 institution, FCS football. Didn't know how much I missed football until I was at Riverside trying to, lead a predominant basketball program, and trying to build that community, the connectivity, the celebration and support around student athletes that they deserved and need. It was different. We did it. I mean, at Riverside, all of our metrics were up financially, more championships in the Division I era than ever. I think we came together as a campus and a community a lot better during my time because of the team that I built and the goals that we had to make sure that our student athletes and coaches and staff had the support that they needed and deserved on a high research campus where athletics was really, not a priority as much as it should have been when I got there. But when I left there, I know I left it in a better place, and really fortunate that Kennesaw had a new position that they wanted to bring on board to help our athletic director here be able to, run the day-to-day more efficiently so that he could do the external things. So I know that was a long story, but, it's been 25 years of a journey. So hopefully that answered your question, Darryl.
It did, and the journey is not over. When you was at University of California, Riverside, you were one of the few female ADs, let alone African-American directors of athletics. And that's certainly on the horizon. Your next stop, whoever gets you, is getting a tremendous leader and an advocate for student athletes as well. Talk about the area you oversee or what you exactly do at Kennesaw. When you hear COO in regards to athletics, people get nervous. They're like, what is that? When I was bringing you on the show. And I said, you know what, watch the show. I'll let her explain to exactly what she do and talk about some of your duties as well.
Yeah, so COO, Chief Operating Officer in business and in the secular world, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is the chief person, the head person that manages all the operations. And so, our AD at Kennesaw was very clear that he needed a bona fide number two, someone that could, answer the questions, the calls, stand in the gap in any area. Now, that's not to say that I'm an expert in every area, but considering a 25-year career, I've done a lot of things. I've sat in the seat. I've been a support person. I've had my best time. I'm having the time of my life right now at Kennesaw, being the number two and the support person for someone else. I sleep better at night. Trust me when I tell you. But it really is the person that manages everything, the personnel, so I do a lot of the the hiring and the recruitment process, coaching our staff up and making sure that they are knowledgeable and educated and have the resources and tools in areas such as NCAA or diversity, equity, inclusion, and cultural competencies, and all those things that maybe fall in the gray area and outside of specialized roles and responsibility. I deal with the budget. So budget reports up through me. It's a dotted line with our campus. So forecasting and planning and prioritizing where we're going to spend the money, why we need to spend it here and there. Because I am looking at the big picture. I'm looking at the total program. And so when I have sports supervision as well, so basketball, men's and women's are my primary sports. I've taken on women's soccer and women's lacrosse this year as well. So when we're looking at, where we're going to, spend, we've got to look at the risk factors. We got to look at, what's going to accelerate our vision, our strategic plan, fastest, and where the real needs are in conjunction to everything else that is going on. I deal with all the operations. So, where there might be capital projects, game day operations, anything that that is going on in the department, it's really funneled through me to put eyes on it, be attuned to it, get the information to the proper people on campus. I have a lot of my responsibility is connected to our cabinet level, in as a liaison to our athletic director, and also to make sure that I'm giving him the information that he needs in real time. He don't have to be in all of it every day, but he does need to know what he needs to know every day. So we have to be in lockstep on a lot of things. So it's a real fun role. It's intentional. It's strategic. First job I did coming in was building out our strategic plan, the first ever. We're going to be rolling that out here shortly. I've taken on with my team, our HR team, a compensation project with HR in our budget office to make sure that our salaries for our coaches and staff and all support services was up to par. They hadn't been touched in many years. So we did a cost of living, assessment. We did assessment on the advancement, how many people have been promoted and advanced in our department in the last 3 to 4 years, what our position descriptions look like. So, I can run the gamut on things that I deal with and touch. But the thing that I think about the most every day when I show up for work is I make sure balls don't get dropped. I make sure that I'm filling every gap. So if people bring things to me, many times it's a challenge, it's a hurdle, it's an enabling factor. They're bringing it to me to help them figure it out. And so that's what I enjoy doing. It's different every day for me. When I'm bumping around and smiling, things are good. But in the middle of that smile, I could have to pivot. And I say all the times that pros pivot. And you just want to make sure that the lives of your coaches and your staff and your student athletes is continued to, develop, to be uplifted, that the strategic vision of our director and our campus community is moving forward. And so that's where I spend my time every day, just trying to find ways to do that for us.
Well, henceforth, why you just gave everybody why you were the right fit for this position coming into Kennesaw State University. And you mentioned, not dropping the ball, allowing things to drop as well. Henceforth, why you got a good football team, because they're not dropping the ball, as well. You hit upon it earlier a little bit about being a former student athlete at the collegiate level, Division I particularly, as well as a former coach as well. I have a lot of coaches and administrators who tune into the show. Talk about the transition. How was it? You hit upon it briefly, but I want you to really talk about it. And, they're beginning to see how full circle you have come from being a student athlete, going into administration. But talk about that transition a little bit more in depth, in some of the challenges that you had and some of the failures that you had, which are good. I always tell people failure is good. They used to look at me like I was crazy.
Hey, my grandma said you fail up. As long as you're falling up the path, you're good, because everybody's gonna fail at something at some point. So thank you for allowing me to share that, because that is really a pivotal time in my career, going from a student athlete, having just earned my bachelor's, to a grad student and being a part of a staff. And so I stop right there to say grad students are a part of the staff. Like, we need grad students, and we need to continue that pipeline, because that's how you get truly developed. As a grad student, I saw all the things differently that was happening while I was a student athlete, and realized how much my coaches were doing for me, the support staff were doing for me to set me up for great success. And so that's the heart that I function in every day is, how do I set everybody around me, whoever I'm engaged with and involved with and on the team, how do I set them up for success? And I think that grad student role allowed me to touch a lot of things in athletic administration. Like I was saying, I was making travel plans for our team. I was making sure our student athletes were going to class and had their academics as a priority. I was making sure that game day was set up, the arena was set up. I was trying to anticipate. That's a skill most people don't think about a lot, but you have to be able to anticipate in a role like a chief operating officer. And as assistant coach, you should be anticipating what your head coach needs, would be saying. I pride myself in getting in the mind of whoever I'm working with. Like right now with our athletic director, he is a business brain. I have business acumen as well, high business acumen actually. And just to be able to connect with him and figure out what is he thinking next. He sends me so many documents and things for me to look at and review. And I go through it with a fine pen and mark it up and say, this is what I'm thinking. This is a question that came to mind when I read this. And I take it back to him, talk him through it and say, what were you saying right here? This didn't feel like a complete thought. Or what if somebody's looking at this that, doesn't know what, the collegiate jargon. How would they? And he's just like, I'm good at what I do, and he's good at what he does. And together we make a great partnership. So when you talk about, what you're learning as a student athlete, as a grad assistant, as an assistant coach, as your journey continues to track up and grow, you'll need all those skills and things in your toolkit. As an assistant coach and a head coach, I think the biggest thing is you're dealing with people, and you gotta learn how to deal and work with people and personnel. And I'd say all the time, I don't treat people like I want to be treated. I treat myself very well, but I treat people like I want to be treated until I learn how they want to be treated. Then I try to treat them like they want to be treated. That's how you really build intentional and deep relationships with people, and you show people you really care about them. For example, if I can stand getting text messages and phone calls all evening while dinner's going on, my family, fine. But if my colleague doesn't want that, then, I want to learn how to treat them like they want to be treated. And so I'll hold that call and that text message into the morning, or I'll make sure I hit them before 5, before they leave and depart for their, the rest of their journey. The transferable skills are, undeniable. I mean, travel, scheduling games. As a COO right now, I'm scheduling games, guarantee games. I'm working with my colleagues to see how we can, build budget. So yes, we give them budget, but we also want them to fundraise, and we want them to think of other creative incentives to get people to rally around their programs to build attendance. I'm looking at attendance numbers from last year for basketball and trying to develop the plan for growth for this year for basketball. Those are conversations that me and my coaches have to have. Those are things that sometimes you don't pay attention to when you're an assistant coach. But if you were looking to get in the head coach role, it's not just X's and O's. It's really about business. It's the business of sports. And so you can see how those things build if you slow down and you reflect enough and you get into some professional development where people can teach you and coach you up, and you're not just thinking about the next play, the next player. You really got to be thinking about the total purpose of why you're doing what you're doing, how it's benefiting your student athletes, which the ultimate benefit for them is, this is my philosophy. My student athletes should earn their degree. That's no question about that. But I want them to win a championship in the 4 years that they're with me in my program. And then I also want them to have the best collegiate experience they could possibly have, because I got that my college days were my best days. And so, and I know coaches that I work with and for now, that's what they want too. So how, as a COO or an assistant athletic director or a senior associate athletic director or an assistant coach, you help build the business model in a way that every 4 years your prospects are gonna come in here, they're gonna graduate, they're gonna they're gonna win a championship, and they're gonna come back as great alums because they had such a great experience. Think about that in the staff perspective as well. You hire staff, and you know how there's a lot of turnover. When I got to Riverside, there was such a turnstile in that program. I slowed it all the way down. I told them, I said, look, we're not hiring anybody, in no role without them coming to sit down with me, because I want to be able to tell them, as the athletic director at UCR, that I'm going to be here. I'm going to commit to this place, and I need them to come and commit too. I don't need this to be a stepping stone for them. I need them to really come in and be able to lock in with our student athletes, coaches, and staff so we can build something special. And we slowed that down a little bit. But you think about now, at Kennesaw, I may have been a part of 25 searches in my 18-20 months here. And that is not an exaggeration. But part of being a visionary is being able to anticipate what, this mass exodus of college athletics, how you continue to build a pipeline. And that's why things, programs like the Right Fit in organizations that are really, buying into the future of college athletics is so important.
Well, we're going to take a commercial break, and we'll come back, and we're going to talk about what the show is really all about, the interview process and the selection process. You're listening and watching The Right Fit.
The Right Fit podcast is brought to you by Rising Coaches Search and Consulting. Tired of spending what seems like all of your time and budget filling coaching vacancies? Let Rising Coaches Search and Consulting handle your next coaching search. Our process is simple. We identify, vet, and recruit a talented and diverse group of professionals that fits your institution's profile, all for a low price that we guarantee will beat our competitions. Plus, all of your searches will be handled by former coaches, meaning we will get the best possible insight on all of your candidates, and you'll get the perspective that only a former coach could provide. For testimonials, a full client list, or more information, please visit risingcoaches.com.
Welcome back to The Right Fit. I'm your host, Darryl Jacobs. I'm with my guest today, Tamica Smith-Jones, Chief Operating Officer at Kennesaw State University. And we're going to get into the interview process. Tamica, you have been a part of and led so many interviews. You just mentioned how many you've been a part of at Kennesaw State University, as well. And this show is all about right fit. Give me 2 do's and don'ts when interviewing.
Yeah, so I think you do make sure you're very prepared, that you bring good energy in your presentation, and that you're authentic. That what people are seeing in your interview process when you show up to their campus is, if given an opportunity, that's what you're going to get. Don't, I think, is a lot of times people try to answer questions and may say some things poorly or more critical about former employees. I think that's one of those things where you've got to be able to finesse your experiences in a way that you stay truthful, honest, but also positive. The growth and the learning that you've gotten out of every experience, I think is important that that the interviewer will translate that as, if there is a challenge here, that they can overcome that challenge, and how they're going to present to internally, to the public, or elsewhere, those challenges. So those are two things that I would point out.
And collegiate athletics is so ever changing, and everything today, everything is trending, as on social media, and even evolving in collegiate athletics and professional sports as well. Talk about some trends you think people should know or stay abreast of in collegiate athletics.
Well, everybody must stay abreast of what's happening with the Transformation Committee, and understanding where college athletics may be in the next year, 3, 5 years, as it relates to legislation just came down with transfers, and how they would be, treated in their process, and things that they need, whether that's student athlete friendly or not, is the case, or the call or concern. Also with name, image, and likeness, I think, college athletics is really giving student athletes an opportunity to, be their brand. And, it's something to say that, I could be Jones and not be able to promote myself as Jones, only can promote myself as Kennesaw State. And so I really appreciate the way that, after a year of the NIL, that we're continuing to evolve and continue to be able to show our student athletes how to leverage their name, image, and likeness. And I think, that's something that they deserve, they've earned, is their right. And we do need some more regulations around it, I believe. Right now, every state is doing something different. And nobody wants to, really talk about the collectives that are happening. And but I think that, done right, I think it's a good business opportunity for our student athletes to learn entrepreneurship, and something that they can take in addition to their collegiate experience, which 4 years in college athletics, playing and giving out your heart and your soul, blood, sweat, and tears, earning a degree, you should be able to come out with some entrepreneurship skills too. So those are two things. And then the last thing I would mention is, still on the rise is the diversity, equity, inclusion piece. I think that, we're seeing a lot of that impact. I would like to see it more sustainable. I'd like to see more minority coaches get an opportunity to get in the seat. It's amazing how much risk we take on others, and we won't give one minority coach an opportunity to showcase that potential, and that they've been, prepared and their skill to lead a program. Quite frankly, many of them that look like them. So those are a couple of industry trends and things that I think we all should stay abreast of.
Well, definitely the Transformation Committee. I knew they was going to tackle that transfer portal. They had to get their arms wrapped around that more than anything else. And NIL is coming next, believe me, when I tell you. And that's the business of sports now. The good thing about the NIL is now that the student athletes can get a chance to develop their business acumen, understand that their brand, understand financial literacy, and et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully the NCAA and the state's Congress one day can get together and regulate this thing.
Good luck.
It won't be a free-for-all as it is now. Let's talk about job opportunities that may be on the horizon in collegiate athletics. You talk about NIL, could be mental health. Talk about some of the job opportunities you think may be on the horizon in collegiate athletics.
Yeah, I've seen some very interesting things in the last year. I mean, you have directors of NIL as a position. I think Ohio State has that. You've got I think Duke has the special assistant to the women's and men's basketball program. That may not be the title, but it's an elite title, like a pro title for their basketball program. I think you'll see a lot more with the sports psychologists, of course, but also with dietitians and nutritionists for programs. I mean, the way that our student athletes are competing right now and working and training they got to continue to be fueled properly, and we can't leave that to them to figure out. I mean, they're 18 to 22-year-olds. So I think about what my son is doing right now as a 18, 19-year-old. Like, he's eating junk food all day and trying to play basketball. So it's, I think that nutrition and dietitian piece of it, especially, I'm a real, holistic mind person. And so I like to make sure that student athletes have a holistic mindset. And so to make sure that part is in their thought process, that their psyche is good, mental health piece, their diet is good, that nutritionist piece, and then coaches take care of that sport. Their academic counselors take care of that academic piece. But trying to figure out what those other pieces may be from a job opportunity, I think is really good, and I like to see more focus in each sport for those types of things. I know we don't have the resources perhaps right now in some, especially mid-majors like a Kennesaw State, to get like specialist assistant attention to programs that can pay attention to all that, but I think that would be good. I've also seen DI liaisons, diversity and equity inclusion liaisons for sports in particular, like football at the Power 5 level. So that's interesting and unique way to make sure that those things that need to be covered off on for particular sports, the cultural competencies and things like that you have someone dedicated in that sport already to take care of that, versus you having a campus person trying to do it for 400 or 500 student athletes or 200 staff people. You can really tap in really close. And I think also the COO in athletics has been, trending, lately. I think that's a position that is needed. I think I've served in a senior associate for internal affairs role. It is similar to what I do in the COO role, but the COO role is a bit more, elevated in the way that, I have to think and engage in the high level things of our athletic department and our campus connectivity and our community business development piece of it, if that makes sense. In my senior associate role, like at UTSA, it was really for internal affairs. It was really more touching the coaches and making sure that the internal business and operations was running internally, even though I did a lot of campus and community things. But the COO role that I'm in now, it is really all campus, all internal athletics, a lot of campus, and a good fraction of my time is with community, affiliates and the business development. How do we get better? How do we connect the Kennesaw and the Cobb County and the Atlanta community with what we're doing in athletics? So those are some of the things about, college athletics and job opportunities and how it's trending that I could share now.
Let's talk about how do you stand out during the interview process? I call them differentiators. People often ask me, how can I stand out, particularly when they're interviewing for coaching jobs? I always said, every coaching job I interviewed for, when I was coaching, I got, I just said it was luck, whatever the case may be. But talk about how can someone differentiate themselves as a candidate in the interview process?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, you have to sell your strengths. I mean, you have to sell your expertise. There's no doubt about it. People want to know, you can do the job and, how you can take what you're doing and what they're asking you to do and make it better. Being able to build on the skills and the experiences that you've already had, and show them exactly what they're looking for is critically important. But also being able to show them vision of what they could possibly be based on some of your experiences and vision that you have for the skill sets that you may be able to align with their mission and vision. I think it's also important for you to connect with the team of people you're interviewing with. Sometimes we're so fast and so busy answering the question, we answer the question and we shut up. And sometimes you need to do that. But sometimes you've got to be able to read the room and the audience. You have done your homework. You know who you're talking to. You can be able to make that one connection with someone that you may have attended the same school, or you may have worked on the same committee, or you've done a similar research project. I think that's invaluable, because a lot of people are looking for commonality. A lot of times as diverse candidates, we don't get the opportunity because, we hadn't made them feel comfortable. I hate that, but it is what it is. You got to, make everybody feel comfortable. Right. I really like the fact that sometimes I can make people feel uncomfortable and get them to think on another side of their brain. It's the way that I've grown and developed in my career. It's the way I've sharpened my skill sets. And I think we don't spend enough time being reflective in our interview processes either. Once you finish that interview process, you really need to sit down with yourself and take notes about, what did I do? How could I have done better? What question? I do it every time. What question did I not fully answer? What did I want to say more about? And guess what I do? I send an email, thank you, to everybody on that committee, and I address whatever question they ask me a little bit better if I feel like I did not finish that thought. And so it leaves no doubt. Most of the time I get a response to it saying, thank you, or they start talking about other stuff. And get the job or not, we become, genuine colleagues in this thing. And sometimes, they give you a call back like UTSA did. I actually was called about UTSA a year before I even went to the interview and took the job. So college athletics is a big enterprise, but it's so connected. And so you want to use every opportunity in the interview to not just, go after the job, get the job or not, but to, build relationships and deeper relationships with people that ultimately may be voting you on a committee or a board, or, calling you to be their next, chief operating officer.
Well, you hit it right on the head. Often said, when I was interviewing, I found the commonality. I read the room. I did my research on who was part of the committee, and made sure I hit upon the commonality, or found a commonality, with that individual as well. Last question, best part of the show. I love this part of the show. Word association. I say a person, place, a thing or phrase, and you say the first thing come to mind, and you can expand on it if you care to as well. Alabama State.
Boo. A&M Bulldogs are never going to cheer for Alabama State.
Yeah, I figured I'd ask that question.
I love HBCUs and the swag, but the Hornets.
Well, I was going to ask that question because I got a lot of Alabama State people watch the show. I said I got an A&M graduate coming on, so I wanted
you tell the Alabama State folks. Well, they'll be watching the show that I love them, but a Bulldog would never.
Well, they trust me. They're going to hear you as well. Collegiate athletics.
Love it. It has been the joy of my life, being able to find a career in collegiate athletics has, been a dream come true. I did not chart this path for me. I know it's God divined, and just thankful for everyone that has been a part of the journey and that has uplifted me and given me an opportunity to continue to develop and grow. And I see every day in all of my student athletes, the Tamica that was back in the 90s trying to find her way. And so I try to impart everything that I have for them based on my 25 years of growth, so that they'll have a better journey and it's fulfilling for them as well.
You hit upon this, the next word, family.
Family, boy, I have F's as my priorities every day. That's my fitness. I get up and work out, my faith in God, and my family, and fun. I consider my fun is being in college athletics, but my family, not having them and the support and being able to come home, wake up to them every day, come home to them every evening, being able to have my kids traveled with me for 20, well, they ain't 20, I guess 18 years. My son, as you know, grew up on the college campus. A little tougher getting my daughter on the college campuses than my son is, but my daughter
don't
has
rush
been,
her. Don't rush her.
I'm not gonna rush her, but she's been to volleyball camp at Kennesaw, soccer camp at Kennesaw. She loves soccer, but family is everything, and to be able to be in a profession where you can marry that has been really sweet.
And finally, Kennesaw State University.
We hadn't even scratched the surface at Kennesaw State. It is such an amazing place. I'm from Atlanta. I saw Kennesaw State when it was a junior college. It is a FBS R2 institution, high research institution right now, like hundreds of acres of land. We're looking at 30 acres right now for development. I mean, it's just to be able to be a part of what's happening on Kennesaw State right now in my hometown is unbelievable, and I'm just grateful to be on the team. Kennesaw State is sleeping giant, but I'm here to make sure that everybody knows about them in the next era to come.
Well, I always thought, and we talked about this even when we were working together at Clark and Atlanta University, I always thought Kennesaw State University was a sleeping giant. And now they brought somebody in that can wake them up, and that's you.
Oh, we won't.
Well, Tamica Smith-Jones, thank you for joining me this afternoon. I want to thank
you for having me, Darryl. Such a pleasure. Keep doing the great work. Rising Coaches, Right Fit. I'm so proud of you.
Well, we got the foundation. I know where it came from, us working together, and you're part of this foundation that I'm doing now as well. But I want to thank the viewers and listeners for tuning in this afternoon as well. Join me next Friday with another great guest here on The Right Fit. Until then, please stay healthy, stay safe, and have a wonderful weekend.
The Right Fit Podcast is brought to you by Rising Coaches Search and Consulting. Tired of spending what seems like all of your time and budget filling coaching vacancies? Let Rising Coaches Search and Consulting handle your next coaching search. Our process is simple. We identify, vet, and recruit a talented and diverse group of professionals that fits your institution's profile. All for a low price that we guarantee will beat our competitions. Plus, all of your searches will be handled by former coaches, meaning we will get the best possible insight on all of your candidates, and you'll get the perspective that only a former coach could provide. For testimonials, a full client list, or more information, please visit Rising